Your favorite dynamic duo is back. And today we're going to cover how do you articulate your worldview without sounding abstract or inaccessible.
So if your thinking has evolved, but your thought leadership all sounds like an earlier version of you, this is more common than people actually realize.
And today, as always, we're going to dive in, give some examples, and share why that happens and what it actually means for growing your business and your body of work.
This is the Grow Your Business for Good show. We're your hosts. I'm Shannon Hernandez.
And I'm Amy Hager.
This show explores what happens when a business outgrows its message and what it takes to rebuild messaging systems that carry the full depth of your work.
Each episode breaks down how messaging shapes trust, authority, and decision-making, and why many established businesses find themselves explaining more while being understood less. We focus on the strategic shifts founders and leadership teams need to make when clarity alone isn't enough, so their expertise comes through without oversimplifying it. So when we say worldview, I want to get into a definition of that, Shannon, but just to kind of kick us off for the conversation today, here's what we believe. Effective thought leadership connects worldviews directly to real decisions and real outcomes. I think it's very much so important to tie to story. We talked about this in the last few episodes, tied to live experience. But can you help us define, Shannon, what worldview actually kind of means to you?
Yeah, well, to me, when I think about my worldview, I'm giving almost like insight into the part of my brain and my heart and my voice, my actions that help people take a very abstract idea to
Mhm.
something that they can apply right away.
Yeah.
And I think this is the difference as your thought leadership grows. I mean, this can be a double-edged sword, honestly. You can be so deep in your craft that
Yeah.
you, this is when people come to us actually. They're so deep in their craft. They're healers, they're independent publishers putting out new models of publishing. They're um, you know, cattle farmers. I mean, seriously, we have had a cattle farmer here. Okay, these are the people who are so deep into their own processes and their own body of work that they forget when they come out and try and talk about it, it just doesn't land. It's abstract.
Yeah.
I mean, it sounds real good to all the cattle farmers when they're together talking about what they're talking about. They all get it.
Right, exactly. But it probably doesn't sound good to the ideal customer who is buying the cattle farmer's product, right? And so I think an
Exactly.
important part of this is like translating your philosophy into actual practical leadership insight that your ideal audience can connect with and really see. And so I think as messaging experts and as people who really read between the lines when we're having these conversations with our clients to pull the messaging out of them and then create a package so that it makes sense to the outside world. What I find in a lot of our messaging co-creation sessions is many leaders do have a clear worldview, but and it's not an issue necessarily that their worldview isn't deep or they can't go deep in their worldview. It really is, it gets lost in that translation when they try to speak it on their platforms, on a stage, in their email, etc.
Exactly. And one of the reasons it gets lost in translation is because it lives in our brains in
Yep.
things like frameworks,
Hmm.
core principles. Um, you have defined for yourself internally how you make decisions, but you can't share that with others. Like part of thought leadership and part of worldview sharing is being able to get super practical with people, right? So when we go and we share these things publicly, it often very much sounds conceptual, theoretical, it's hard to apply. And this is the work that we do. When your message, your body of work outgrows your message, this is where we come in. And I want to give an example, actually, Amy, today. So, a friend of mine that I've been masterminding with for years, 5 years, going on 6 to be exact, she sent me some copy this morning. And she
Yeah.
said, "Hey, I'm having trouble naming this certification program
Okay.
and the event where I'm going to launch it." And I could see as I read through, she sent me 6 ideas. She said,
Yeah.
the more I worked on this with chat, the worse it got. So use your Shannon magic. That's what she said.
Yeah.
So I'm looking at it, right? And I'm realizing rather quickly two major things are going on with why she's stuck. All right.
Okay.
The thing number one, like Dr. Seuss, right? Thing number one was she is speaking for this certification in creativity and arts expression. She's speaking to two audiences at once, which is important because she wants to include them both, but it wasn't messaged properly. So she's speaking to
Mm.
individuals who want to get the individual certification. By the way, I'm going to be doing it. I'm super
Okay.
excited,
I
right? To deepen
expected you
my
would.
own, yeah,
Yeah.
deepen my own experience with creativity and my own experience of creating. So that was one group, but the other group, which is super important, is she's going to have this license and get CEUs for like therapists and
Mm.
helping professions who want to use it with their clients or their patients, right?
That's cool.
So number one, it was so vague, neither of those were addressed. That was the first issue. Okay. The
Mm.
second issue um, was she was speaking about the event in terms of her own process of how she's going to teach and not in terms of what they walk away with and the transformation they will receive.
Right.
Okay, this is what we're talking about to a T here. She has
Exactly.
a clear worldview. She's been doing this work for 30 years, maybe more. She has frameworks. She has a way that she's going to usher in this new body of work and certify people. The problem is, it's just not translating when the copy comes out.
Right.
And
And
so that's what we're going to talk about today.
and so I think if she would have rolled with this copy, I'm sure people would read it and be really impressed with what she's doing. And I'm sure it feels super aligned, but as you're reading through this, as maybe someone who is interested in this, it probably becomes pretty unclear exactly what's going on. And so,
Yep.
you know, people will agree with the philosophy, but they're still wondering, you know, what does this actually mean to me? And is this
Yep.
for me? Is this something that I need? Is it something that I want? How is this going to help me? And so I think that this is a really, really great live example of how you as a how you can create worldview language, but sometimes it ends up being too abstract. And having someone who understands the psychology of messaging and everything along the lines that we do can really tighten it up and have it land so much more beautifully to not only impress and feel aligned, but so that the reader feels really clear.
Yeah. And that's the thing, everyone, right? Like we have to remember we live in our frameworks, we live in our expertise. But that's like step 3 or 4 of somebody's decision to work with us,
Right.
right? We actually have to go backwards a few steps and say, what is their lived experience right now? What are they thinking and saying and perceiving as their problem? And we've all heard it many times. I don't think it's a nice thing, but I think it's a true thing. Sell them what they want, give them what they need.
Yeah.
What they need is a new messaging system around their deepened body of work. Nobody wakes up saying that, people. I
If
wish
you
you did. It'd make my life a lot
do, that would make
easier.
my life a lot easier. That's exactly what I was thinking. Oh, it'd be so much easier if they did wake up saying that in the
Oh,
morning as they're in the shower.
no, but what you're saying, if you're in this situation, you're
Yeah.
saying things like to yourself or aloud or to your team, why am I explaining myself so much?
Hmm.
Why do people almost get it, but then I can't close those sales? Like they seem like they're almost right there and they almost get what I'm talking about, but
Right.
then it fizzles out,
Right.
right? Or you might be saying, gosh, when I was a baby business owner, I didn't have to explain this shit so much. And now, yeah, sales are happening, but they are not happening at the rate that I think they should be, given my expertise, given my body of work, given my
Right.
deepened knowledge, given my authority and um, position, if you will, in the marketplace. Like you're not known anymore.
Right.
This is the stuff I jam out on all day long.
Right. Exactly. So you gave a good example of how we've helped your mastermind buddy work through and kind of where the gaps were and what she gave you. But I'm curious, like, when you're giving worldviews, whether it's in your email, your social media, as you're speaking, as you're writing, etc., do you have an example of one maybe that you share that isn't necessarily tied to selling something?
Absolutely. And I think that's important to note. We've got, all kinds of, we actually teach six core messaging types within the
Right.
profit-driven messaging framework. One of them is invitation messaging, where you invite people into your world. They have to know what you're
What
selling,
you're selling.
right? You need
Yeah.
to give them a reason. Um, and worldview could be connected to that, but more
Hmm.
often than not, my worldview posts, the job is not to go like make an offer to somebody. It's to get someone to think and take action and stir them up in a way that they can be like, oh, that was interesting. I never thought about that before. So,
Yeah.
Amy, I pulled one out of the archives.
Okay.
Story time, y'all. We're going to have a story. All right. And we will also link this in the show notes in case you want to go dissect it and look at it
Yeah.
for yourself. All right. Amy, you ready? Got your warm blanket and your fire going?
No, but I got my hot lemon water.
Okay, that'll work. All right. Here's a good example of what I consider a worldview that is steeped in how I think and how I would want people to go take action afterwards. The honest story of how I had to revive my business and myself to thrive again multiple times over. A lot of people talk about business growth like it's a straight line. Mine has been anything but. Over the years, I've had seasons where everything was on fire in the best of ways, and seasons where everything was on fire in the worst of ways. And every time I thought I had figured it out, something shifted. The market, the messaging, the world, or me. Here's the truth about what it actually took to bring this business back to life. There was a year, the $1 million year, when my entire message was, we help you get clients. And God did that messaging work. But I didn't love the people it attracted because I wasn't calling them in with the truth of my work. I was calling them in with a promise of productivity. And so this was my first big lesson. You cannot build a business you love on a message you don't.
Mm.
So I pivoted. I moved from client getting into messaging strategy, the real engine behind why clients came to us in the first place. But then AI hit the scene, and suddenly everyone decided they didn't need clarity or depth or strategy because, well, AI can just write it for me. And this business took a freaking hit. It was the kind of hit you only survive if you have savings, grit, and the humility to rethink everything. It wasn't fun and it wasn't glamorous, and it certainly wasn't a mindset issue. It was a wake-up call to come back to my inner knowing and my truth. So I stripped everything back. I quit talking about marketing completely, even though that is the buzzword that sells. And I stopped trying to position my work in ways that didn't feel true. And I asked myself the hardest question of all: what do I actually do better than anyone else on the planet? And that question brought me for full circle. Every pivot I made, from speaking to marketing to email focus to lead magnets to thought leadership and long form content, had one through line. The message was always the thing holding the tactics together. Messaging is the architecture, and messaging is the ecosystem. Messaging is the foundation that will either cause a prolific business or a broke one. Messaging is the spark that moves people into belief, trust, and action. So I rebuilt everything around it. I redefined our frameworks. I repositioned the brand again. And within 4 weeks of doing the hard work of re-envisioning and repositioning, we signed 5 new clients. And the clients we attract now, these are our people. Depth first, seasoned, integrity led, thoughtful, the kind of leaders who understand that messaging isn't content, it's authority and it's trust. And now, as I prepare to move to Spain and open a new chapter of my life and leadership, I'm stepping into my work with more truth than ever before. My words make the difference in people's lives and brands. The real story isn't just that the business is thriving again. It's that I finally let my message evolve with me instead of dragging myself back to what used to work, would still work, but is not the work I want to do. So if you're in a season where something feels off, the clients you're attracting, your message, your momentum, trust that this is not a failure. It's an invitation, because a business can only grow when the message behind it grows too.
Yay! I don't know if the clap is actually
Fireworks!
picking up, right?
Clap, clap,
So,
clap!
so here's what I like about this worldview that you're sharing, Shannon, is I think this one really does a beautiful job bridging your belief, storytelling, sharing your experience, and in a way it explains your behavior.
It
And I think,
also, the very thing we've been talking about, it also is very clear in judgment,
yeah. Mm,
right? Judgment of the market, judgment of me abandoning my greatest gift to others, judgment of, whoa, I reached that $1 million brand, then it came crashing down. Like, it's, it moves people. I mean, the
yeah,
comments on it alone. You
right.
know when you get it right, y'all. You'll know when you get it right. And not just for the sake of getting the comments. One, it'll just feel like, whew, God, that was like, I've never had a baby, but that was like giving birth, right? But also, you'll get the feedback. You'll get the feedback.
So, as we're kind of wrapping up our conversation today, I think we've given a couple really great examples of different types of worldviews, how this works when you're, selling an offer, how this works as you're sharing your thought leadership, how it really, how you have to get out of that abstract of where you're sharing and go deep. And again, if going deep takes time to explain, if it's a longer post or a longer conversation or a longer comment, that's fine. But depth cannot be abstract. And these worldviews really earn trust when it shows up in decisions and translates your philosophy into leadership.
That's what we want for all of you. You're
Yes.
doing such beautiful work in the world. And as you're body of work and your expertise deepens, you often need someone to help you steward your message.
Yeah.
So that you can reach the right people again, right? Or new people. You might be making a pivot where it's just new people,
Yeah.
right?
True.
So thanks for tuning into this episode. If you find yourself explaining your work more than you want to be, please download our profit-driven messaging ecosystem guide at joyfulbusinessrevolution.com/profit messaging. And you can always stop by on LinkedIn and tell Amy or I hello in our DMs. That's generally where we hang out, and
Yeah.
we'd love to hear from you.
All right. Well, until our next episode, we hope you all have a beautiful rest of the day. We'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye.
Adios.
Thank you for listening to Grow Your Business for Good. This show is a part of our work at the Joyful Business Revolution, where we help founders and leadership teams rebuild messaging systems when their work has outgrown their message. If you're explaining too much and people still don't fully understand the value of your work, you can explore more at joyfulbusinessrevolution.com.
Until next time, remember this: when your messaging system is aligned, sales conversations shorten and your expertise comes through clearly.